Welcome to this explainer, right? Let's jump straight into the structural breakdown of what truly makes a leader ethical. We're going to move way past the abstract philosophy today and get right into the daily mechanics of corporate culture. Because, being a good person is one thing, but actually architecting an ethical organization, that requires a very specific set of tools. So, what actually happens when leaders prioritize winning over integrity? Well, we all know the answer. We see massive ethical failures, everything from Enron to recent pandemic missteps. And these failures prove that ethical leadership isn't just about reading a nice mission statement. It's about high-stakes, split-second decisions with very real-world consequences. When winning entirely eclipses integrity, the structural foundation of a company basically rots from the inside out. So to fix this, we're going to treat corporate culture like a living, breathing ecosystem today.
We're covering 5 key areas. Number 1, defining true ethical leadership. 2, the 5 bases of power. 3, managing ethical business conflicts. 4, navigating ethical crises. And 5, empowering the everyday leader. Let's get into it.
Section 1. Defining true ethical leadership.
Having a strong founder is simply not enough to guarantee a culture of integrity forever. Take Arthur E. Anderson, for example. Here was a founder so absolutely dedicated to integrity that he once flat-out refused a massive improper accounting entry, even despite the severe financial hit his firm would take at the time. But when successive leaders failed to maintain those core values and started prioritizing sheer business growth and profit margins instead, they ended up completely entangled in the Enron scandal. The entire corporate ecosystem collapsed. It just goes to show that an ethical culture has to be continuously maintained by every single generation of leadership.
And this leads us to a diagnosis of what's called normative myopia. This is essentially the dangerous belief that facts and values can somehow be completely separated in business. It's a kind of ethical blindness. For instance, imagine a top performer's toxic behavior is just ignored simply because they hit their revenue targets. Leaders with normative myopia justify their actions by believing the ends justify the means. But here's the reality. If you ignore values for long enough, your stakeholders will absolutely eventually remove you.
Section 2. The 5 bases of power.
Let's look at the actual levers leaders use to influence their teams every single day. We have to remember that power isn't inherently evil, right? It's literally just a tool. Structural psychology gives us 5 distinct bases of power that can motivate behavior either ethically or unethically. And how you choose to use these 5 levers totally determines the ethical health of your team.
The really crucial point here is the contrast between 2 specific approaches. Dangling a carrot, using reward power, like a bonus or praise, can definitely create short-term compliance. But if you flip to the other side and rule by the coercive stick, using threats, demotions, or fear, well, that almost always leads to intense backlash and a total breakdown of the culture. Neither of these extreme ends fosters long-term, internalized ethical commitment. They literally just train people to chase a prize or avoid a punishment.
Instead, the healthiest organizations rely heavily on referent power. This is all about building organic influence through shared goals and genuine empathy. Think about it. If an employee feels a sense of oneness with you, they trust you. It creates this unquestioning loyalty and commitment that a simple cash bonus or a threat could literally never buy. That is the power base you really want to cultivate. Moving on to Section 3, managing ethical business conflicts.
Of course, even with the absolute best power structures in place, friction is going to happen. But the stark reality is this. When employees see misconduct, the vast majority stay completely silent. 74% fear the report won't be confidential, and 64% are terrified of being labeled a snitch. That means even if you have a dedicated ethics hotline set up, a toxic culture will ensure nobody ever actually picks up the phone. And that forces us to ask a pretty hard self-diagnostic question about our own workplaces. Have we accidentally built a culture of silence? Because if your team is too scared to tell you the truth, you aren't leading an ethical organization. You are basically just flying blind.
So to fix this, there's a practical toolkit called the Thomas Kilmann Conflict Mode Instrument. It maps out exactly how leaders respond to conflict based on 2 axes, how assertive they are and how cooperative they're willing to be. When we plot these out, we see different archetypes. If you're highly assertive but totally uncooperative, you're competing. You're just trying to win at all costs. But if you avoid conflict entirely by being low in both assertiveness and cooperativeness, you're just letting misconduct fester.
The real sweet spot you want to aim for is the collaborating style. This style absolutely refuses to compromise on ethical values, but It works constructively to meet the needs of everyone involved. It requires a lot of emotional intelligence. You have to be flexible, you have to really listen, and you've got to find creative solutions in those tough gray areas of business without ever sacrificing your core principles.
Section 4. Navigating ethical crises. So what happens when everyday internal conflict escalates into an unprecedented global crisis? During the COVID-19 pandemic, we saw real-time stress tests of corporate ethics. We had this crazy situation where normal business operations collided violently with public health. For example, some leaders initially stated that the coronavirus panic was dumb. The source material points this out as an example of overlooking the critical ethical duty to proactively protect employees. It just really highlights how even top leaders can stumble when suddenly faced with an unpredictable, massive-scale ethical dilemma.
In contrast, we saw some very varied organizational responses. Whole Foods initially faced massive public backlash for a memo that suggested their employees donate paid time off to their sick coworkers, essentially shifting the ethical burden right onto the staff. On the flip side, Kroger proactively adjusted their policies to support both their workers with financial assistance and their vulnerable customers by offering exclusive shopping hours. In a crisis, how you choose to protect your stakeholders reveals your true organizational values.
Which brings us to Section 5, Empowering the Everyday Leader.
This is the ultimate cure for a toxic culture, recognizing that ethical leadership isn't just something for the executives. To empower everyday employees to be leaders, we have to master 4 categories of communication: interpersonal, small group, nonverbal, and listening. Transparency has got to flow in every single direction, not just top-down. If you aren't listening, like truly listening to both the verbal and nonverbal cues of your team, you're going to miss the subtle warning signs of an ethical disaster.
And the absolute biggest threat to that team communication? Groupthink. Groupthink is a super subtle disease. It causes small groups to completely overlook serious ethical red flags, simply because the desire to just get along and have harmony outweighs the need for critical analysis. When employees feel pressured to conform, they just stop reporting risks. But the good news is you can actively dismantle groupthink in your very next meeting by implementing a few rapid-fire actionable steps. You have to intentionally allow open discussions. You must actively welcome criticism instead of shutting it down. Bring in outside experts to challenge your assumptions. You've got to ensure everyone at the table feels psychologically safe enough to speak up.
I want to leave you with this final thought for this explainer. True ethical leadership is an ecosystem that you contribute to every single day, completely regardless of your title. You literally don't need to be the CEO to exhibit referent power, to collaborate through conflict, or to speak up against groupthink. The whole anatomy of ethical leadership relies on every single employee. So take a look around your own workplace today. Are you building an ecosystem of trust or a culture of silence? What kind of leader will you choose to be tomorrow?